Hey, ladies and gentlemen, it's 1995. The internet is staring you in the face. What are you going to do to capitalize on this moment in time? That's Tom. I'm Justin. Welcome to Pump Your Coin. All right. So before we head down the rabbit hole, let's help some others find the internet. Why don't you guys tap that like, smash that subscribe, and share us with just one friend today? All right. Now let's go. Tom, how are you?
I'm doing fantastic, Justin. Today is a kind of a rough day across all the markets, whether you're in stocks, whether you're in crypto, no matter what you're in today, things are tanking. There's a little bit of turmoil out there in the world. China's having a big effect on the United States. But, best of all, it gave me an opportunity to buy the dip. So I'm very excited that I'm stacking my Satoshis today. I bought some more Solana, I bought some more Algorand, I bought some more Ethereum, and I bought some more Bitcoin today. So I'm pretty happy that I'm able to capitalize off these dips. I'm just hoping that it doesn't go down much further than this.
That's it. I think today's discussion, guys, could a potential collapse of Chinese real estate implode the American markets, stocks, crypto, real estate? Let's talk about it, man. What do you think? What's going on? This Evergrande in China, they're going to potentially not be able to pay on their debts, all of their obligations this year, and they've got debt. They've got debt to Chinese investors. They've got debt to American investors. They've got debts to Chinese banks and American banks. They've got debts everywhere. Are we going to see the same thing here? Like, it's not too far away it's certainly not hard to imagine BlackRock or any of these large investors that buy American real estate with an eviction moratorium in place doing the same thing, going, "Hey, hands up. You guys made everybody stop paying. We can't pay our debts." Is that what's coming here?
I'm so confused about what's coming here, Justin, because, depending on who you listen to in the real estate market, 50% of them out there are saying it's just going to keep going up as the government keeps printing money. Investable assets will just keep skyrocketing. So I listen to that camp, and then I listen to the doomsday camp that say, no, once the moratorium ends, real estate prices are going to go down, are going to dramatically drop. I'm in the market to buy a new home right now, but I'm confused. My head is spinning. I know supply is still at an all-time low. You probably know more about that than I do. And I'm so waiting for it to come out so that the prices can fall. But, as far as China, if this becomes a ripple effect across America, all markets, and we learned that today, that, when the stock market goes down 2%, crypto goes down 10%. So it certainly affects everything that I do, everything that you do. What happens in China definitely affects the United States.
Yeah, and important for everybody to know that when the stock market dips 2 and the crypto market dips 10, inverse happens as well, right? When the stock market goes up 2, we're going to go up 20.
Yeah.
So be prepared. Make sure you guys keep an eye on that. But yeah, I'm pretty involved in the real estate industry. I have my mortgage loan originator license. My wife is one of the top realtors in Tampa. So I hear about real estate on a very, very regular basis. Um, and I don't know. I don't know if the eviction moratorium is going to impact real estate values. And of course, this is just, hypothesizing on it. But right now, supply is still so low. People don't want, COVID people coming in their house. People aren't moving quite as much either because, right now, previously people had to move pretty frequently for a job. Well, some of that's being mitigated by remote work, right? And so there's less people selling, but there are certain hotspots in the country, Tampa or Florida in general, right? Texas in general, where there are mass influxes coming in. And so I think there's a 5 year, and this is just a guess, right, for me, but it seems like there's about a 5 year supply shortage. I don't think we're going to see any shortage or any reduction in price in some of these hotspots where people are trying to move away from high tax areas like California and New York and come here, to these safe havens with, more, I guess, conservative financial direction. So I don't know. I think that it's tough. It's a tough call. I don't know where the real estate market's going to go. I do know that it will have an impact on crypto. It always does, just like the stock market. I think the real estate market's going to give us kind of a similar impact. So as long as the market stays hot, I think it's kind of this really nice balance against any potential dips in the stock market. With that said, how do you prevent some of these large corporations who I know people just think, hey, they've got billions of dollars in reserve, um, from evicting people, and it's total catch 22, right? Like the virus has created an impact, and it's significant, right? It created a significant number of loss of jobs, a number of businesses that have just gone completely out of business. Um, so you don't want to evict anybody who was impacted by that, something that they had absolutely zero control over. But at the same time, I mean, I do pretty decent, but as a small landlord with just a few properties, I intentionally keep a few months of reserve in each of those accounts for each of those properties. But it's been, I mean, we're coming up on what, 18, 19 months since that's been in place. And there are people who are choosing not to work. There are people who are choosing not to pay their mortgages. And so I see it every day, and I get scared for the impact on the overall economy, which will have an impact on the crypto economy.
Yeah, I think the fallacy that the government put out there is like landlords are evil people, right? And and they're rich people that are sucking the blood of the poor people who are renting from them. And I totally disagree with that stance. I saw the one landlord who painted on the roof how much money the tenant owed him, and the tenant wasn't paying for months and months. I don't know about you, but if a tenant hasn't paid in a year, to me, I would probably have to get rid of the house. I mean, it's the moratorium has hurt so many landlords and so many people that own properties that I think that we need to get back to normal. We need to get back to normal. But also in the real estate market, I think what the virus did is it kind of gave people perspective about life. Pre-COVID, we're riding the wave of, the government is saying, oh, it's the best economy in the history of the United States. Unemployment, and Trump's saying unemployment, it's at the lowest rate it's ever been at. When it was all just fictitious, with the money printing and what the stance that our government, the Fed, Congress, the spending, what they all did to keep pumping this economy up. And I'm not sure that's going to stop. I mean, what president is going to make a decision to say, all right, we're going to stop spending? We spend twice as much as we take in. We're going to be fiscally responsible. And I'm not sure anybody will do that. And I don't think the next president, okay, let's say this is your you're running for president, right? In 2 years, 3 years, and your campaign speech is, we're going to stop spending money. The economy is going to tank, but we're going to be fiscally responsible, right? I mean, it's not going to happen. So maybe I should buy a house right now. I'm not sure, Justin. I really need your advice in this situation. Maybe we should buy a house right now. But if you look at it one other angle, Justin, if you look at it as far as how houses are priced in Bitcoin, I mean, I certainly can afford a lot more house right now because, if the average, if the average 10 years ago, the average price of a house would have cost me thousands of Bitcoin. Today, it only costs me 10 Bitcoin. And I'm sure in 5 more years, it's only going to cost me 2 Bitcoin. In 10 years, maybe 1 Bitcoin. And eventually it's going to be Satoshis. We're going to be stacking Satoshis for real estate.
Yeah.
So as far as Bitcoin compared to real estate, that's my favorite investment is put it into these appreciating crypto assets because they are not going to stop going down. We might feel little bumps like today, that happened in the market, but just like El Salvador did, they did what, Justin?
Got to make that currency legal.
What? They bought the dip, baby.
Did they buy the dip today? I didn't see. I know they did on that first weekend.
Yeah, they did it again today. Bukele put out today, we bought the dip. He spent another, I think, $6.5 million on Bitcoin today to add to his treasury. So, I just love, I love, going to El Salvador. I just love his position, his, what's the right word? He's all in on what he's doing here. He's all in on his monetary policy. He's all in on making it right for his country, making his country wealthier, making his, fixing the remittance problem. He is 100% all in on it. And I really hold him with high regard because of that.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, he just grabbed, he pulled a Bill Belichick, right? He went and grabbed Michael Saylor's playbook, made a copy of it, brought it home, studied it hard, and said, "This is what we're gonna do." And then he did. He went all in, right? He just he's right there. And it's interesting. I mean, when you think about it, what did they have to lose? They kind of had to go all in, didn't they? I,
Yeah, no, I agree. I agree. It's the fringe, it's the bottom of the barrel who's gonna have the most to benefit from the adoption from crypto, and so they had the American dollar, their currency went out about 10 years ago, in the highest rate of inflation in the world. It was just a failed project. You know, fiat currency is a failed project with every country. It's gonna, our country fails at the rate of inflation every year, right? Typically, it's been 2 and 3%. They're saying now they just came out again. What it said, it's 6%, but I think it's more like 15 or 20%, or even 50%, because when the things that I'm buying are going up dramatically in prices. So for El Salvador to adopt Bitcoin, something that if people hold on to, imagine owning a Michael Jordan rookie card. You're not going to sell that today, right? You're not. You want to hold on to it because it's going to keep gaining value. Maybe when he dies and goes away, that's when you want to sell it. But something that gains in value continuously all the time, you want to hold on to. You want to hold on to as long as you can. You got to. They're not spenders down there. They're actually savers. The fallacy is that poor people spend. They're not. When they get a hold of money, they're very frugal with it and they hold on to it. And if that goes up in value, it's going to benefit the country as a whole. It's fantastic for El Salvador.
yeah, I mean, I definitely love what they're doing. It's interesting when you talk about fiat as a failed experiment, right? And it happens. I think when I look back on that, I actually look at it as a just a continuation of the same experiment, right? Like if you go back, I mean, the US, people, of course, our age or younger, that we only understand and know the US dollar, right? But the US dollar hasn't been around forever. I mean, even if we go back to the genesis of our country, we've had multiple currencies. We've had Confederate dollars. We've had, Union dollars. We've had railroad bonds as primary currency. I mean, the US it's constantly evolving, and that's change is always hard. It's one of the hardest things to do, and accept and understand. And so I think when people see Bitcoin or pick a digital, blockchain based currency, there's a lot of fear. They don't understand it. But if you went back just 100 years, not 1,000 years, but 100 years, you would have seen the same fear on the faces of the same people going through the gold rush, going through, the Civil War, going through every change that we've had just in our country alone. And then if you start to look outside, you've got, the complete collapse of Greek currency, or Venezuela, or Nigeria on a regular basis. All of these currencies that are fiat based, or government backed locally, to their governments, every one of them has failed. Very few. I can't think of anybody that's using a Roman gold coin today as their primary currency.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I agree 100%. And the United States rode the wave for the longest time. When it was backed by gold, at least there was something that the rest of the world could agree brought value to the US dollar. So in 1970, in August 1971, when Nixon took us off the gold standard, then it just became, our ability to pay, or some people would say it's because it's the value of our GDP, but other people would say it's the value of the bombs that we have in our country, right? And so we could lead with an iron stick, so to force people to use our currency. And the truth is that's what many of the wars were fought over what's going to happen to our dollar, who's going to stop using our dollar. I mean, think about it. All of our enemies are people that don't want to use our dollars. Now, how we classify them one way or the other is different, but China, Iran, North Korea, I know they have policies that I hate, that I despise, but they don't want to use the dollar, and they're our biggest enemies. I mean, the American dollar is going to fail. I listened to a British crypto guru the other day, and he says it's so inevitable, and the rest of the world is talking about it, but people in America are only tickling the outside of the topic. It's inevitable that the United States dollar fails, and he's predicting within 5 years.
Five seems aggressive, but I am pretty sure that in Greece they said the same thing, and the same in Venezuela, right? You kind of hit that critical mass, and all of a sudden you go from hero to zero overnight. Um, and I've told you this before, and I think I mentioned it on the show. That epiphany for me was that was the orange pill moment for me when I realized that the American currency, based on the overwhelming amount of information in the world and the shared information from country to country, there are no borders anymore. There's no limit to information. Um, when I realized that, that was my epiphany moment. That was the aha, like drop that orange pill, go down the rabbit hole, and get exposed to cryptocurrency. And I, of course, like everybody else, I started with Bitcoin, then I bought Ethereum, then I bought Cardano, then I bought a few others in the top 10, and then I got Degen and got way down into the ultra low caps, and of course got beat up pretty hard down there during the collapse. But fortunately, I think I was wise and at least kept over or around 90% of my total investment in my top three. So I'm glad I stayed there. And I've been a little more gun shy, actually pulling it back and getting most of my investments into one of the top three for me.
Yeah, yeah. Every time I get a little bit of extra cash on the side, I try to analyze analyze the news that I hear. I do want to invest. Anytime I start hearing one crypto's name from one podcast and another, once they start flowing between podcast to podcast, that's when I start putting money into it because the chatter's up. But I get a lot of people asking me, why don't I invest in Quant? Why don't I invest in Matic? Why don't and it's just I'm not hearing everybody talk about it. And so that's predominantly why I'm in the Bitcoin, Ethereum, and Solana. I do have the Algorand thought in my mind that could possibly be a great big thing. But, I'm trying to stick to the big ones. I do have a lot of issues, and we've discussed it a little bit, Justin. I really got to call you out on it, is that, is about, what is a security and what's not a security. I mean, if they've already deemed Bitcoin and Ethereum a commodity, and everybody else is kind of, who knows what they are. I'm very nervous about everything, including your favorite project, Cardano. I'm very nervous about what's going to happen.
Yeah, I think when we talk about Cardano specifically in that case, and I don't even mean Cardano specifically, I mean pretty much all layer ones. I think from a characteristic perspective, they will meet the same test that Ethereum, meets. Is it decentralized? Are there enough nodes online? Are there enough people invested in it? Is it freely available? Is it, centrally owned like Solana? Like Solana is 100% going to be found to be a security. I can't imagine any way. It's the most centralized, and that's why it can be so fast, right? That's why they can do 400,000 transactions per second, because they can control the entire thing. And that's not meant to. I own Solana. I like Solana. I know you own Solana. It's just, those are just facts, right? It's really fast, but it's fast because it's fully centralized. But I think anything that's going to meet the same characteristics that Ethereum has, as far as the characteristics of the blockchain itself and how it evolves, I think they'll all be fine. Cardano, and I use that because that's my favorite, right? But Cardano is not XRP. It's not trying to accomplish the same thing as XRP. It's not trying to be be what XRP is trying to be. So I think the layer ones, it really comes down to all these layer twos, as well as really any of the dApps that could get put online, right? Like any of the DeFi stuff. Those are things where you can start to, where hopefully we will start seeing regulation, but I think that's most likely where it's going to start, is the regulation on some of these DeFi platforms.
Yeah, and the whole industry is just screaming. Congress, the Senate is screaming, give us the regulation, right? Tell us what we are so we can move forward from here. It's not a bad thing. It's a good thing. Listen, consumers do need protection because there is a lot of scams out there. That's not a hard concept to understand. We want the protection. I mean, there is that fringe that doesn't want AML, anti-money laundering, know your customer, KYC, that does, but the majority of people don't really care about that. We want to be able to invest in these cryptos. We want to be able to, grow our investment base, and we want it to be safe. And that's what the SEC is designed for. Unfortunately, I think that they are looking at their high wealth, high net worth clients better, more than they're looking at the independent investor like us. I think the SEC cares more about the banks, than they care about the individual investor, although they wouldn't say that out loud. But certainly
No.
when Gary Gensler gets out of office, I guarantee you he's going to get over $50 million for speaking fees, all hired by big banks. That's when you know what their agenda was. That's what, Clinton was healthcare, right? He got his $100 million from healthcare. Was it Janet Yellen was banks, and now she's, from Treasury to Fed. You can see when they leave office where the money was coming from, because they certainly get rewarded afterwards. We need to take money out of politics, and that's a whole nother topic, but money is corrupting everything. Money corrupts politics. I think they all go into politics with honest intentions, but the minute they start seeing that money flowing and seeing where people can benefit, and then they end up benefiting, the revolving door theory comes into play. It's just ridiculous. And crypto fixes all of that. When you have sound monetary policy, there's not enough fluff to go around. Okay, people will not get rid of their money like they do right now, because it has value and it increases. And
yeah, for sure. Like monetary policy is going to fix where that influence can go, because I mean, really that speaks to one of the major objections that people have. Oh, well, crypto's used for nefarious reasons, right? You can track everything. You know exactly who's putting 6 Bitcoin in Bill Clinton's wallet, right? You know exactly where that's coming from. You can track that directly from, from the healthcare company to their private wallet, to their other private wallet, to their other private wallet, and then to Bill Clinton, right? Easy peasy to track that transaction. So it's always funny when I hear people say that it can, people use it to launder money and stuff like that. It's so much the opposite of that. It's kind of funny. I when I go down the rabbit hole of regulation and what we're going to do, what the U.S. is going to do, I doubt that any of it will be influenced significantly by the retail investor. I think at the end of the day, you're right. It all comes down to the banks. It all comes down to that big money, right? And who, what are all these political action causes, the PACs, is that right? Political Action Committee, sorry. That fund these campaigns, right? So when Biden wants to run again, that's when you'll see who exactly he's supporting. It all comes down to the money flow and where did the source of the money come from. So with that said, any final thoughts? Anything you want to take us out on?
No, I'm so optimistic about banks going out of business, Wall Street going out of business, how crypto is going to affect all of them. It's inevitable that the federal government's going to do the CBDC, central bank digital currency, open up their wallet. Then we have a place to custody everything. I'm assuming we're going to be able to put our crypto in those wallets also. And then we can eliminate the banks, because they do not care about the poor people. They just want to lend to the rich people, to accredited investors, to people with money, so they can keep building that 1% up. And crypto fixes all of that. So yeah, 100%. Great show today, Justin.
Yeah, absolutely, Tom. All right, boys and girls. You heard it here first. Watch out for these regulations. There's good, there's bad, but no matter what you do, there's one way to mitigate against it. Get exposed to crypto.